We will now take a look at how teachers and program staff can work with families to support the children's development. We'll first think about different types of family interactions that might influence children's development and how the family is really the child's first teacher. We'll look at how partnerships can be established and even how we can involve families' perspective into the assessment process of young children. Family engagement means building relationships with families that support family well-being, strong parent-child relationships, and ongoing learning and development of parents and children alike. Family engagement can happen in the home, in the program, in the school, and in the community, and it is a shared responsibility with all those who support the child's learning. Parents are their child's first and most important teacher. This is important consideration for parents and for teachers to have as an understanding. Learning happens all day, every day for young children. Teachers and other professionals have the opportunity to help families recognize the many ways that they support child learning and development. What and how they support this learning is embedded in their culture. Families have all they need to help children. They don't need flashcards or apps. The daily interactions that happen in the context of caring relationships is where learning happens in everyday moments. When a dad pours water in the bathtub and comments on its temperature and talks to the child is learning. When a grandmother reads signs along the roadway and points out letters and words, the child is learning. When a mother helps a child measure and scoop cereal and pour milk in the morning, the child is learning. In early childhood education, when families and teachers work together, this learning can be enhanced. What and how families teach their children vary within each family's culture. Meaningful and lasting learning for children is shaped by relationships. Families already help children across the day. Let's think about how to create effective partnership approaches with our families. When early childhood educators recognize the ways parents are already supporting their child's development, this can promote the parent's competence and confidence. One way is to state what you observe the parent doing well. Educators also support parents when they notice things the child learned outside of the early childhood program, highlighting how the parent's actions have supported the child's learning and development. This effectively recognizes and strengthens the natural competence of parents as they interact with their children. A time many teachers can observe different interactions during drop-off and pickup, and other times that they are at school or that you're in their home. You can also highlight what a child is doing well in the classroom and how the family is influencing this. When we think about family patterns of interaction that support development, we can look at the patterns between parent and child that influence the social and intellectual competence of young children. Researchers have found a wide spectrum of interactions can have developmental enhancing qualities. These three general types have been clearly associated with child development outcomes. It is the quality of parent-child transactions, the day-to-day exchanges that happen to create mutuality, where they each exert influence over one another. Parental sensitivity or responsiveness to the child has been linked to the children's social and intellectual competence. Routines that parents establish, including those that involve a parent's social network, educational experiences, playdates, and community activities, all provide the context for the parent-child interactions. These experiences can also broaden a child's context for development. Finally, the ability for parents to attend to the basic needs of their family and their children is crucial. So let's think about how educators can support the development of family patterns that influence the competence of young children and their families. True partnerships with families. Families are the experts on their child, and educators bring expertise into the teaching and learning. There are 6 relationship-based practices that are helpful in building an effective and supportive approach to building a partnership. Observe and describe the child's behavior to open communication with the family. The child is the common focus for families and programs, so the child is a natural place to start in your interactions and discussions. Your role is to start a conversation or to listen carefully to the family's description of their child. You should describe your observations clearly, simply, and without judgment or interpretation. Your goal should be to make meaning together with the family. Reflect on the family's perspective. What details am I missing about this situation? How can I put myself in their shoes? What assumptions am I making that may be incorrect? Ways to draw a family's perspectives out. You might ask specific questions such as, what do you do at home? How do you think it's going? What interests you about? Approaches for supporting competence of the parents would be to ask questions such as these. Would you mind sharing what you've learned with the other parents? I saw your child doing, and then name that great thing, and tell the parent it showed how hard you've all been working. How are you doing with the challenging situation you shared? Would you like some more ideas? There are also ways that we can focus the family-child relationship. We can make statements such as, I can see your child is really connected to you. He gets a big smile on his face whenever you. She wants to be just like her mom. You are so important to her. So we're acknowledging the importance of the family-child relationship. We can reflect on our own perspective, and we can value the family's passion. So examples of valuing the family's passion, you've told us that this is important to you. Or you can say something like, we know your child's safety is the most important thing to you. Or you can say something like, she jumped so high today, I got it on video for you. So capturing those moments, acknowledging those families' passions. Then reflecting on our own perspective, we can say to them, I don't know what to do. Can you help me think through how to approach a family about this issue? I'm really disappointed in this situation. I don't understand why it's so hard. I wonder how my past is affecting my reactions to this family. So these are questions that we would ask ourselves, these last ones, as we reflect on our own perspective that may be impacting our ability to form relationships. So then we think about these supportive approaches and how there is a greater increase of who is establishing who and where the relationship and strategies are being used. So in this list of strategy, each strategy, as you go down the list, adds a little bit more support and direction from the teacher or the program personnel. For example, to establish a context, an educator might simply put out a favorite toy that a parent and child both enjoy while suggesting a strategy to the parent. So establishing the context is when we think about developmentally appropriate materials that parents and children can enjoy together. That was when the teacher brought out the favorite toy. And then in the classroom-based program, this can provide an opportunity for adults to become comfortable and interact with their child. So we can affirm the parent competence by being specific about what they're doing well. We can focus a parent's attention on how the child is developing. For modeling, the educator might momentarily take on interacting with the child and then modeling some things and then quickly pull the parent back into the interaction. And then suggestion is when the educator provides the parent with a specific suggestion to try with their child. So now let's focus on how we can work together with families to really think about the role of families and child development. The goal, of course, is to support the child together, Most parents want to know more about how to support their child's growth and development, especially when it adds to the fun that they can have with their child and respects their family's culture and their family's language. Educators share information and ideas with parents when they ask for things and after checking in with the family about what they want to hear. When we think about different stressors that today's family face, such as multiple jobs, transportation challenges, work shifts, language barriers, single-parent households, maybe grandparents who are helping with the raising of children, or elder care that's happening with multi-generations in the home, these are just a few things that families are facing. When a family enters your program, you may quickly learn about a specific stressor that this family is facing, and you may only hear a small fraction of those stressors. When you can adopt the stance that this family will be as active as they can be in their child's education, it will benefit all parties. It also may encourage the family to stay engaged or to increase their engagement in the classroom and in the learning. In order for families and educators to work successfully together to support development, they need to understand each other's roles in this partnership and share information. During home visits and meetings with families, educators can welcome a family's engagement by approaching them with warmth and curiosity. It can be reassuring for some families that your focus is on the child. When educators and families share and gather information, it benefits the children. Educators can share about the context for learning in their classrooms and how they need families' support. While some families do not see themselves as equal to the trained teacher, they can come to see that they have much to offer their child, especially if the teacher welcomes their level of involvement. Learning can and does happen in so many different contexts. Parents are already teaching their child and have been since birth, and really before then. They just might not realize how much they do. So there are many simple ways to extend what they already do to further enhance their child's learning. Many factors can affect a child's level of involvement in your classroom and in their child's formal education. House-related issues, household transitions, hospitalizations, long-term care, development, and even child custody. Keep in mind, when approaching any family, these possible factors, especially a family that does not seem to be as involved as your other families, they just may have different reasons that they find it difficult to share those with you. It is easy as educators to offer advice on how to support a young child's development unknowingly and unintentionally, especially when it is unsolicited advice. This actually can create a dynamic with parents that can disempower them and fail to acknowledge their strengths. It may not acknowledge the ways that families have already engaged in their child's learning and development. When discussing their child, you can affirm a family's competence by acknowledging what they're already doing. You can invite the family's perspective and gain a deeper understanding of the ways the family supports development. Next, a key strategy is to ask how the family works with you. Ask what ideas about other ways to support their child, or maybe brainstorm ideas together. Remember, educators are still responsible for guiding the process. While families know their child best, they're not always familiar with developmentally appropriate practices or typical patterns of development. Educators also need to be ready to suggest strategies that can be used at home to help support the growth and learning of children. And appropriate interventions and developmentally appropriate practice is a great way to support school and home connections so that learning goals are being worked on together and intentionally. You bring the attitude that you are on the same team with the family by attending and listening, seeking and verifying information, joining and supporting. These strategies come in handy when you're working together to support child development. Partnering with families around assessment instructional cycle supports children's development and learning. When teaching teams and families are equal partners in sharing information about children, they can work together to optimize outcomes for children. When you and families collaborate on assessment and share information about children, the results are better teaching, In the classroom, because information from families provides you with a comprehensive picture of the child. There's better support for learning beyond the classroom because involving families is developing children's learning goals, and increasing opportunities for families really supports these goals at home and in the community. Programs in classrooms can encourage connections with lending libraries, photographs, and sending other classroom items home, and similar activities. By bringing these items into their homes, children and families will be reminded of school and what happens there. Families and educators can create message boards, memory books, and other artifacts that reinforce the relationship between what happens in the classroom and at home. These connections can naturally engage the whole family in the child's learning. Families can play a large role in supporting children's learning related to the classroom. By supporting family engagement in the classroom, you model interactions that support learning and help families notice their own strengths. Families may be involved in the classroom in a variety of ways. It is up to each family to decide the amount of time and level of comfort that they have, but you can create opportunities for families to feel welcome and meaningfully engaged in your classroom. When educators are flexible to meet the family's interests, families get involved in a variety of ways. Maybe they sit with their own child, and this gives them an opportunity to observe and interact. A family member may prefer to observe in the classroom to see what other adults do. A parent might sit with their child at snack time or circle time. A family member may enjoy spending time with the child and having these warm interactions. Reading and playing with their own child. Family members may want to be more active in the classroom, but may feel most comfortable when focusing on their own child. A parent may pretend to eat food with the child in the dramatic play area, or may sit in the book area and read one-on-one. Volunteering or helping with activities. Family members may want to help in the classroom. They may work with other adults to help out with an art activity, for example, or join in a group of children in an ongoing activity. Other adults may feel comfortable leading activities for small groups of children. Family members may want to have more of a leadership role if the opportunity comes up in the classroom. For example, a father may volunteer to read a story, or a mother may volunteer to do a demonstration for the children. A family member may work with the teacher to plan a small group activity. It is also worth noting that not all parental involvement has to take place during the program day. Some families may enjoy helping prepare classroom materials or work in the evenings to help support the ongoing learning and development that's happening in the classroom. Earlier in the course, we've discussed how important it is for children and families to see themselves and their culture represented in the early childhood program. So it is important that we encourage families to share these types of things with us. Now let's think about partnering to support child development. During conversations with parents, many opportunities arise to offer support. When educators first affirm a parent's strengths and acknowledge what is going on, it can be a foundation of positive relationship with the parent, one that invites their questions and to be seen as a resource for parents. Offering advice is not the same as support. Families might also want guidance, and this is something to be listening for. Focusing observations gives parents many opportunities to become better observers and interpreters of their child's development. As they become better observers and interpreters of their child's development, they are more sensitive and responsive to their child. Skillful observations can also encourage and motivate parents to broaden a child's social network and expand their experiences. The routines parents establish, including those that involve educational experiences such as play dates and community activities, field trips, these all provide another context for parent-child interactions. When parents increase their observation skills, it is more likely that they are led to more knowledge of ways that they can provide health and safety activities for their child. As parents become observers, we can help foster this information about becoming a better observer. through some specific ways that we can encourage families to notice their child. Parents who observe their child's interactions with specific topics in mind will gain deeper understanding. When our attention is focused on specific things, it's easier for us to see what we're looking for. So we can encourage families to look at how their child communicates their feelings, their wants, their needs. How is their child learning and using new words? How are they using their senses to learn? How are they exploring their environment? How are they interacting with other children? So all of these things are important for us to help establish a lens for understanding their child's development. Here's an example. Think about the children in different age ranges and how they explore their environments and what types of materials or toys that they would need. So possible ways that young children explore the environment: from 0 to 4 months, a baby, an infant, would watch, listen, touch, bang, hold, or move objects. From 4 to 8 months old, they might repeat these interesting actions by banging and shaking and mouthing objects. As a child gets closer to becoming a toddler, 8 to 12 months, they might try an action to see the results. They might continue to bang things together, and some objects are going to be used as they're intended. From 12 to 18 months, we're going to see children imitate actions, combine objects, activate switches and buttons, and use trial and error. From 18 to 24 months, we're going to see children start to pretend and have symbolic play, and so on. So we can think about this is an example to help parents understand what to look for in their home environments during their children's everyday interactions. An important way to help adults learn about children is by responding to the children's experiences. A young child might splash water with their hand, and when the caring adult responds to that experience with curiosity about that splash or making one in response, it can support the child's development. So here's one way to help parents remember what to do. Describe, repeat, add something new, wait, and observe. So if we think about language modeling from the class tool, that's really what we're applying here for parents to learn as a tool. So we want to draw out and strengthen interactions. So we describe, parents can help children be attuned to what it is they're doing, and their actions and their vocabulary through describing. The parent can repeat what the child is saying, repeat and expand. And then there can be some new understandings with that expansion or that mapping of what is being talked about. And then we can sit back and wait for a response, either verbal or nonverbal. Setting up experiences is also something that parents might need our collaboration and support on. As learning can happen in so many different contexts, when a parent wants guidance on setting up experiences, offering simple ideas is the best. One key way to support young children's development is through shared book reading or storytelling. We'll think about some more ideas in the next several slides. Families can support reading with their children at home. They may not all be comfortable with reading and reading pictures to infants, for example, but we can help build families' confidence. Reading to babies helps build bonds, vocabularies, and habits. There are 4 book reading strategies that some families find helpful: reading the pictures, keeping the child's interests, asking questions, and model making connections. Parents can really help. They can read the pictures. This gives their children the same experience with literacy. They can look at the cover of the book and point to it. They can talk about what they see. They can make guesses. They can encourage literacy skills. And you can model this for families. Talk about what you see and make up your own ideas, and this will help. And you can also include a lending library from your classroom. Adults can keep children's interest in a book by bringing it to life with different voices, by skimming it, by acting it out, by doing a picture walk. And children love to hear these different character voices, and parents can really have fun being these characters. Some books have repeated lines that children also enjoy anticipating, finishing, taking on, and becoming a part of the book. Health and safety activities are also other ways that parents may want our support. Sometimes new and young parents don't realize some of these activities and how important they are for their infants and toddlers and preschoolers. Educators, we can support this. Well child checkups are great opportunities for the parents to understand the health of their young child. A bath can be a great time to check on different aspects of the child's skin, on a rash, on bruises. Parents can help with other safety things such as having a helmet for the child when they're riding a tricycle at home, and different safety education can be promoted through school materials. Lastly, let's take a look at families' perspectives and how we can collaborate with families on the assessment and instructional cycle. This is an opportunity for us to discuss with families their knowledge of assessment and curriculum. So we'll think with parents together as what is the purpose of assessment in early childhood, how you approach gathering information, and then how you want to involve parents in the assessment process. First, we want to make sure that we're careful with assumptions about a family's knowledge of assessment. They may understand the purpose of assessment, such as determining strengths and needs and setting learning goals, and even know how teachers in early childhood gather this data, such as observations, photos and digital images, checklists and work samples. Or they may be worried that assessments are like grades, or they may be concerned that they're going to show deficits of their child. Partnerships are created by selecting strategies that make families feel comfortable throughout the assessment process. If the process starts with finding out what parents know about assessment, then educators can offer appropriate information to eliminate gaps. Asking families to provide information on their family, such as who makes up the family, resources and support, and on their strengths and interests of their child, it can be very helpful. Families can then collaborate on assessments such as co-planning or making observations or collecting different data points that happen outside of the classroom. They can help decide about the information as it's gathered, and they can give input. Educators can facilitate the collaboration and provide guidance on the assessment process. And when families are involved and plans with the teacher these goals, that can really support a greater increase of family engagement. If families do not know about the process of assessment, find ways of sharing information with them that matches their learning styles. Sharing a visual of the instructional cycle can be very helpful to families. Whether the child center, the Early Childhood Center, calls it teaching and learning or assessment instruction or curriculum and assessment cycle, teaching and learning cycle, you can adapt the visual to what your families are familiar with. So we can then explain to them that there's an observation, documentation, interpretation, and instruction cycle. When educators and families mutually share information, that gives everyone access to key data about the child. Sometimes children demonstrate different abilities at home and then in the community. When educators and family members mutually share valuable information, this can really help enrich the fuller picture of a child. The information can help educators adapt and adjust their teaching and instructional practices to make learning more connected and meaningful for the diverse children in their classrooms. Families can better assess their child's progress and plan activities to help their child at home as well when they're involved in a goal setting process. All right, so how are we going to invite families to share? Teaching teams and families work in partnership to gather and share information in culturally and linguistic responsive ways. In order to recognize and support families, we want to provide family opportunities to talk with us in the language that they're most comfortable speaking in so that we can acknowledge their perspectives, we can connect with them, and we want them to understand how to use the information and how we are using the information that we're gathering about the child. We want to recognize families as partners, and in doing so, we're supporting their competence. Lastly, as we think about engaging families in the assessment process, we're really helping them understand how we're making decisions that are best for their child's learning. As we work to strengthen partnerships, it is best when families are involved in the program as a receiver and provider of information. So families are such a constant in the child's life that it is important that it's not just the teacher giving the information, but that we're actually inviting the families to add. Families can help with identifying strategies and approaches for assessment that will work best for their child, and they can be collaborators on this. When families participate in observing and assessing specific behaviors on their children, families gain an increased awareness of their child's development, which is the ultimate goal. As we think about what to do then with assessment results and next steps, we can think about how educators and families really dig into assessment together, that they share data, they share interpretations, they share possible learning goals, and they ultimately decide how best to support the child at home and at school. Educators are responsible for guiding this process. An assessment partnership with the family does not mean professionals give up their responsibilities at all. You still have to offer interpretations of the data, and you still may have to guide families to understanding what's developmentally appropriate or how to create developmentally appropriate interventions or practices. It is the job of teachers and specialists to share their expertise. Professionals can support families by making sure they understand the processes and encourage families to ask questions and have continued conversations. The acronym REAL can be a simple way to remember strategies for communicating with families. Be relaxed, think about equity and being equal, think about being accessible to families, and that we're learning focused so that we're really helping to focus on the child's learning and development. Relaxed. How are you welcoming to the family? Are you initiating a family-friendly conversation? Effective conversations about the child and about child data are relaxed. They're conversational. We take time to welcome the family, thank the family for their time and their involvement. We remain warm and welcoming. Families need to feel comfortable in confirming or even refuting assessment information. And we show our interest in caring by listening to the family's excitement as well as their concerns. Sometimes it might be useful to hold conferences with families in a neutral location, such as a library, community center, even a McDonald's. Adults maybe feel more comfortable sitting in their own neutral area, even in adult-sized tables and chairs, rather than sitting in a small preschool classroom table. So we want to consider family comfort. We want to consider the pre-planning that goes into meetings and ensuring privacy during conversations and the comfort level of everyone. The second part of the REAL acronym is EQUAL. How are you partnering with families? How are you framing the data? Are they sharing their perspectives? The best conversations about data are framed around building a shared understanding of the child. Although professionals in the field of early childhood education have a great interest in the children that they serve and the families that they serve, families have the most invested interest. And so we have to really think about strategies that can help us provide that relaxed and equal feel. As we keep it real, we think about accessibility. So are you putting up assessment results in everyday language, translating that to the family's home language? Are there samples of work materials available? Child assessment data must be clear, concise, and relevant. We must remove jargon and terminology and acronyms that perhaps only teachers really know. We have to encourage families with that clear, concise reporting. We respect families' home languages. We also might ask questions and check for their understanding, such as, does this match up to what you're seeing at home? Or what have you seen at home lately with regards to this? So give time for families to ask questions. Lastly, we really want our conversations to be about data that are learning focused. So we focus on the data, not necessarily something subjective related to the child. So as we get wrapped up in scores and rating scales and all of that, we want to remember that the child is the focus. And so we invite families to share their observations, and then we can share examples that we have collected as well. Be prepared that we have artifacts to share as we're sharing these examples, because we want to avoid statements like, he's really doing well, or I'm really concerned about his language development. These are not specific things that we've seen. Instead, we want to talk about those specific things, such as, I'm noticing this, or I have observed and documented this. So the other piece that we want to do is we want to keep a strengths-based focus with our conversations. As you describe strengths, you also may want to be able to think about the child's growth and the direction that the child is going. Have a conversation about strategies that might help the child's development by listening to the family's ideas and then identifying and suggesting further ways.